Thank you, Clemens, and welcome, Dhammika. We are thrilled that Dhammika Dharmapala is the 2025 Richard Musgrave Visiting Professor. Dhammika is an outstanding economist, a great legal scholar, and a leading thinker on sensible directions for public policy. In order to better understand Dhammika, and as with so many other things, we need to go back to the beginning. Dhammika grew up in Australia and received his undergraduate degree from the University of Western Australia in Perth, Australia. He wisely moved to the United States for graduate school, and in 1999 received the economics PhD from the University of California, Berkeley, where Alan Auerbach, who was also a Musgrave lecturer, was his thesis chair. Dhammika spent the following year as a postdoctoral fellow in political economy at Harvard. Switching fields ever so slightly, he then spent a year as a law and economics fellow at Georgetown. And after that, he returned home, well, to the other side of the continent, to spend a year as a fellow at the Australian National University in Canberra, Australia. This was followed by 7 years in the economics department at the University of Connecticut, where he was first an assistant and then an associate professor. In the middle of that, Dhammika spent a marvelous year and a half as a visiting faculty member at the University of Michigan. Visiting the University of Michigan changed his life, which is what we do for people. Dhammika then moved to the University of Illinois, where he very much changed fields, accepting a position as professor of law. In 2014, he moved to the University of Chicago, where he ultimately became the Paul H. and Theo Lefman Professor of Commercial Law in the law school. He taught at Chicago until 2023, when he moved to the University of California, Berkeley, as a professor of law. In the category of other fun things in his life, Dhammika has been a fellow of our own CES-IFO research network since 2011, an international research fellow of the Oxford Center for Business Taxation since 2008, and co-editor of the Journal of Law and Economics since 2016. Dhammika has served on the boards of the National Tax Association and the International Institute of Public Finance. He is a past co-president of the Conference on Empirical Legal Studies and is currently the secretary-treasurer of the American Law and Economics Association. And yes, all this means that he's older than he looks. What does Dhammika do when he's not accumulating impressive titles? Well, he studies taxation. That's what he does. He appreciates in a very deep way that in order to understand tax design, we must understand tax avoidance. Dhammika has made quite a name for himself studying international tax avoidance, particularly avoidance that occurs through transactions that involve tax havens. He also studies corporate tax avoidance that goes over the line into malfeasance. Dhammika has done outstanding work on corporate malfeasance with Mihir Desai from Harvard, who is also a former Musgrave lecturer. This work investigates the slippery slope in which corporate managers start by setting up arrangements that facilitate tax avoidance so that their firms pay less tax, and ends with firm managers taking from their own shareholders. It turns out that the same complex structures that firms use to minimize their taxes can also be used to manipulate accounting reports to mislead investors, and in some cases, illegally divert corporate funds for personal use. Dhammika's work provides important evidence of the extent to which this problematic behavior occurs. As you might imagine, based on this work, Dhammika's advice is in great demand among CEOs and others who run large companies and who would like to do even better at plundering them. Dhammika has also done extremely important work on international tax avoidance, identifying the roles that tax haven operations and other international structures and transactions play in mitigating the tax obligations of multinational corporations. In work with Nadine Rydell, Fritz Foley, Céline Azemar, and other distinguished collaborators, his empirical efforts provide the most careful, in my opinion, and reliable estimates of the magnitude of international tax avoidance. And importantly, this work also helps us better understand the mechanisms through which avoidance occurs. Dhammika's work is so valuable because it draws extremely thoughtful conclusions from the evidence, offering sober and sensible implications for international tax policy. He is an expert on corporate theft and aggressive international tax avoidance. Now, they say that in order to understand the behavior of the wicked, you have to be a little bit wicked yourself. Those of us who have known Dhammika Dharmapala a long time know just how true this is. I must add a personal observation at this point. It is a surprising fact that I am old enough to have known and really liked Richard Musgrave, who was a towering figure in public finance and who spent a good chunk of his career at the University of Michigan, by the way. Professor Musgrave was a role model for me, as he was for many others. Professor Musgrave was a real intellectual, and he was a real European gentleman. Broad-minded, kind, and courteous, with genuine care for other people and their concerns. Yes, it is possible to be a leading intellectual and a gentleman. And actually, Dhammika Dharmapala is both of these things. Dhammika rolls the way that Richard Musgrave did, and I'm confident that were he alive today, Professor Musgrave would be very pleased to know that Dhammika Dharmapala is the 2025 Richard Musgrave Visiting Professor.
Okay, we now come to the prize ceremony, and we need again Jim and you, Dhammika. And so the way we do this is I will read this prize document. Follows. So Richard Musgrave Professorship, Visiting Professorship 2025 is awarded jointly by CES-IFO and the International Institute of Public Finance to Professor Dhammika Dharmapala, who will deliver the Richard Musgrave Lecture on International Taxation in an age of the last deglobalization. Thank you very much and congratulations.